Hi, thanks for joining me today. Are your stepchildren a poor influence on other children in the house? Subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell, and I'll let you know every time I post. The stepchildren are likely to be in your lives pretty permanently, and so they can be a constant and changing influence on the other children in the household. There is no magic wand for this, but there are things that can be done. It may be possible to talk to your partner about the influence that their children is having on the children in the household. Quite often, your partner can be quite defensive about that, preferring not to see the bad influence, or preferring not to do anything about it, or think that it's not so bad, or can't understand why it has to be made such a thing of. So if you're in a situation like that, that makes it even more difficult. And you don't want to upset your partner by talking negatively about his children. So that is difficult as well. Well, I don't know your individual situations, and what you can do will depend on your individual household arrangements. But all I'm saying is one needs to step up to addressing this problem if you're thinking it is a problem, and deal with it in a number of different ways, a number of different layers, a number of different strategies, so that you have a sort of multi-pronged plan for how you're going to deal with this. Now, ideally, and this doesn't even happen in families where the two adults are both the parents of the children, you need, if possible, to work with your partner on addressing the issues. That is by far the most sort of expedient and will have a good effect. If you and your partner can agree that in this household, bad language shouldn't be used, this kind of behaviour is acceptable, but that isn't, this kind of influence is not acceptable and needs to be addressed when it's seen. If you can work with your partner on those type of topics, do so. Sometimes you can work with your partner on some of those topics, but not on others. So your partner will agree that, no bad language should be used, but don't mind something else. So it's all about sort of exploring what your options are and doing what you can at all the different levels. So if your partner agrees against bad language, that's something that you can bring to the table next time your stepfamily's all together and discuss it with them and set a rule. And when you set the rule, there should be a small, very small consequence for breaking the rule and rewards for keeping the rule, small rewards. But it's very important that you notice when you make rules, when they're kept. More important than spotting them when they're not kept. So, you can work with your partner on some things. It's very easy to say, my partner is not prepared to support me in this. And maybe they're not. But is that true for everything? Are they prepared to support you here, but not here? There, but not there? So, work it all out. Then, poor influence can come in lots of shapes and sizes. Some stepchildren are a poor influence on social media. Other stepchildren are a poor influence on not doing anything around the house, or being messy, or not wanting to do anything, whatever it is. You've got to analyse it. I would really recommend that this is one of the situations where you try and keep away from the absolutes, like by saying all of, always, never. If you say something like, my stepchildren are never a good influence on my children, then that will make it happen, and that's what you'll begin to look for. And I would say this to you: the moment you want to say an absolute, like an all or a nothing, look at it in greater detail. It's probably not all. It's probably not every occasion. It's probably not all the time. It's probably not never. Occasionally they do this, that and the other. Or always. They don't always do that. They may do it some of the time. Or sometimes it's not always, they do it partially. Really look into exactly where this poor influence is, and don't make more of it than you need to. But you need to address what is the bad influence, and then take steps to address it. Communication can be absolutely key here, and as a step-parent, you need to, maybe for just a short period of time, step up. You need to step up on managing this situation and monitoring it. It requires of you to take more interest and be more interventive than if all the children are getting on fine and they aren't a bad influence on each other. If they are a bad influence on each other, you've got to check in on them more, you've got to do more communicating, you've got to hold more family meetings, you've got to spend more time one-to-one with each of the children. I know it's hard. I know we don't have endless amounts of time. But if you take it in hand, you're likely to have a better outcome. And it does need to be taken in hand. The other thing about that is that's not all bad. Children need to be observed and noticed and rewarded and have a good relationship with adults. And if this poor influence it means that you're having more communication with your children and stepchildren, actually, that's not a bad thing. There's another big advantage to having your situation as a step family where there's poor influence. It's there. You may not want it, but it is a huge advantage for children to be able to learn what their own mind, and to be able to say no. And when somebody presents them with something, not to just go along with it. This is the opportunity you have to teach your children that inside your stepfamily. Often children don't have to learn that until they're out in the big wide world and they're at work and with their friends socially. And then people say to them, do this, do that. And if they follow the lead all the time, they're going to get led into things that they shouldn't be doing or that they will regret doing. It's good to enable your children to think critically about what's going on around them. And if this is an opportunity for you to teach your children to think critically about what your stepchildren are saying to them and how they're influencing them, then you are giving your children an advantage. So, spend time one-to-one with your children. Talk about issues, about decisions we all have to make about our values and our beliefs and what we think should and shouldn't happen and what's the right and the wrong thing to do in different circumstances. This is probably where you need to spend a fair amount of time and work enabling your children to be not so negatively influenced by the stepchildren. There are other things you may be able to do. Scheduling, timetabling, making sure that the exposure that the stepchildren have on your children is less, not more. Arranging things in the house so things are sorted out differently. There are lots of things that you can do to manage poor interference. It requires you to step up and probably do more if you've got this situation at home. But that's not all bad. It's about setting rules in the home and explaining those to everybody who uses the home, and communicating well so there are very few misunderstandings, monitoring the situation and giving feedback to everybody, preferably positive, about what's going on in the home. It's tough. It requires us to step up. It's not easy. And I'm sure you wish you didn't have this situation. But what can I say? You've got to just make the best of it and take action as and when you can, and then do it. We run workshops, sessions, an email response service, and we write booklets. You can find links to our social media and website in the description box below.